Today's word is let go, let God. I turn within to my spiritual source in the face of any challenge, any fear. I invite you to say that with me.
I turn within to my spiritual source in the face of any challenge and any fear.
The affirmation, let go and let God, can be found on the walls of recovery programs throughout the world. The truth is unquestioned, and its implications have only expanded as our collective consciousness has grown. Today, I recognize that letting God is not surrendering to an outside source, but choosing which of the narratives within me I believe. When I quiet the opinions and fears of my ego mind, I allow my innate, divine nature to express through me as strength and inspiration in the face of every challenge the day might bring. I am an expression of divine love, and as such I affirm, I turn within to my spiritual source in the face of any challenge, any fear. God yearns jealously for the spirit that he has made to dwell in us. Submit yourselves, therefore, to God. James 4, 5, and 7.
So good morning, everyone. Good morning. You sound absolutely beautiful singing those chants. Yeah. So as you know, we're in this series called The Path to Peace. And our topic this morning is the magic of conflict. Oh, sounds like an oxymoron, but okay. So we all love peace, don't we? At least we say we do. And yet we're often immersed in some sort of conflict or the other. It seems to be unavoidable, it's everywhere. Sometimes I think Woody Allen was right when he said, more than at any other time in history, mankind faces a crossroads. One path leads to despair and utter hopelessness, the other to total extinction. Let's pray we have the wisdom to choose the right one. Conflict just seems wrong somehow. All this turmoil in the world and in our lives, and inside us for that matter. But this morning I ask, is it really? Thomas Crum, author of The Magic of Conflict, wonderful book I have here if you'd like to look at it, offers a different perspective. Crum is the founder of the Aspen Academy of Martial and Healing Arts and the chief instructor in the art of Aikido. He writes, much to man's detriment, there are alarming differences between nature's principles and human perception. As I travel the country, people often come to me with conflicts they are having in their lives. It may be a relationship they're in, type of work they do, a health problem, or a general dissatisfaction with their life. They inevitably speak of these conflicts as bad. But nature does not see conflict as negative. Nature uses conflict as a primary motivator for change. Imagine floating down the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon. Quiet water flowing into exhilarating rapids, hidden canyons with shade trees and wildflowers, clear springs of drinkable water, solitude and silence that can be found in few places in the world today, and those majestic cliffs looming above with fantastic patterns in the rock and all the colors of the rainbow displayed. The Grand Canyon is truly one of the world's great wonders and provides us with a tremendous sense of harmony and peace. Yet how was that amazing vista formed? Eons and eons of water flowing, continually wearing away the rock and carrying it to the sea. A conflict that continues to this day. Nature says conflict isn't negative, it just is. Now, conflicts seem to arise most often in our closest relationships. Have you noticed that? Think about the average hard-working husband and father He comes home from work, stressed and tired, wanting nothing more than some peace and quiet. But what he finds at home is all hell breaking loose. A tired and testy wife yelling at the kids who are fighting with one another while rock music blares. The house is a mess. The dinner is spoiled. The dog is hiding under the couch. And he goes nuts. He just can't handle it. He starts giving orders, missing completely the irony of yelling at everyone to settle down and keep quiet, which pushes the tension underground where issues can smolder, unaddressed and unresolved. All he wanted was a drink, some good food, and to rest and relax with all the good news on TV. But what he's done is make matters worse. Quieter, maybe, but worse. Some version of this scenario is really familiar, isn't it? Not only in homes, but in offices, communities. Ever go to a contentious town hall meeting? Yeah. Even driving in the car. How many rude gestures have you either given or received in the last month? Everyday conflicts can easily escalate into down and dirty fights. Why? Buddhist teacher Pema Chodron says it happens when we harden our hearts. Oh, well, now if we're honest, that happens a lot, whether because of a minor irritation or a serious problem. So how can you tell if you have hardened your heart? Well, if you pay attention, you'll feel your body tensing and your breath becoming shallow. You'll feel your mind racing with fearful or judgmental thoughts. Whether we notice it or not, this body talk happens nearly every time we feel uncomfortable. Perceiving an adversary, we instinctively prepare for battle. No place for softness here. We need to get tough. We need to fix this situation or push through it, don't we? It's sad, really, because we're so in need of comfort, and what we end up doing is creating more stress for ourselves. What happens is it's like a chain reaction. You know what I mean. Let's say you've gone to bed really tired, but then you notice there's a mosquito buzzing around your room. You tighten. Relaxation starts to go. Almost imperceptibly, the chain reaction of misery begins. And we begin to fan it with our thoughts. How did that thing get in here? Did so-and-so leave the door open? Daggone it, mosquitoes love to bite me. I'm going to end up with bites all over me by the morning. And on it goes. These thoughts become the fuel that ignites the war. War on that teensy-weensy little creature. You're up. You're searching for the fly swatter. You become a predator, tense and alert. And pretty soon, that tiny creature is smashed flat and you're wide awake. Perhaps for the next hour or half the night. We talk a lot these days about the dangers of extremism and fundamentalism from North Carolina to the Middle East. It's a problem out there in other people. But think about it. In a split second, we can become fundamentalists, which is to say self-righteous and absolutely sure of our personal point of view. The mind hardens into a position and imperceptibly the heart begins to close. From here, it's very easy to justify our angry, even violent words and actions. If you look back at history or at any place in the world where religious or ethnic or racial or political groups are fighting, or at members of families who have been feuding with one another for years, we can easily see because we're not particularly invested in that issue, that there will never be peace until somebody, not me, but somebody, softens what is rigid in his heart. Today I propose that the one who should do this is me and you. It's time for each of us to own up, to look honestly at what causes us to get ensnared in our own particular, unique brand of fundamentalism. Notice when we begin to think our aggression or our prejudice or our opinion is reasonable under the circumstances. Yes, it's time. That is, if we truly want peace. If we could take a step back, or maybe up, wouldn't it be clear that no one's ever completely right and no one's ever completely wrong? We all see things differently for a whole range of reasons. But from a higher perspective, wouldn't we also see that there is virtually no chance of getting anyone else to change? To leave their conditioning and their convictions behind and suddenly agree with our position. So the solution can only be a change of heart. A softening that just might lead to a smattering of empathy for the other's point of view. And through this tiny opening, reconciliation is possible. Thomas Crum would say that every conflict, in the family, on the street, across the world, within our own hearts, has within it the key to transformation. This change of heart, from hard to soft, from closed to open, is the greatest gift of conflict. This change of heart is what spiritual transformation actually looks like. If you've ever read any of the writings of Martin Luther King, you know that the whole civil rights movement, as he envisioned it, was based on the kind of love that does not exclude anyone. Its ideal was far greater than equality for black people. Its message was that everyone is harmed by injustice, and everyone is healed when injustice stops. He also taught that no problem will ever be solved through aggression, since aggression toward another human being is the most basic element of injustice. Gandhi called his philosophy for peacemaking satyagraha, which means soul force, one of my favorite words. The power of truth blended with justice and compassion. Now, some activists might say, okay, but nothing will ever change if we just sit by and hold on to our all-inclusive, loving view. But the truth is, when we begin to live by this kind of love in our own everyday lives, something begins to shift. Sometimes slightly, sometimes very dramatically. The first shift is in you and me. Taking a breath, we ask ourselves a couple of questions. What's really going on here? What really matters? Looking inward instead of outward. Well, that's transformation also. Gary Simmons says that the value of conflict is that it shines light on a misperception or an unmet need, something missing in the relationship or in the heart. This understanding gives rise to the realization that conflict is a mutual experience. It's not me against you, it's me and you. We're in this together because each of us wants the same things. To be heard and respected, to feel loved and connected, to feel safe and okay. These core needs join us, human to human, and they give rise to compassion. That thing we're fighting about, that could actually be the vehicle that leads us to deeper connection with one another. Identifying and understanding what's missing in our hearts or in the relationship, clearing up a misperception, is surely the first stone on the path to peace. Whether the issue is small or large, the conflict itself offers a tremendous opportunity for spiritual growth. It calls us out of our own little world into the realm of us. And what a huge expansion of consciousness that is. I am not just I, but we, part of something greater than myself. One of the best definitions of peace I've heard is softening what is rigid in your heart. Yes, you've heard it said, war begins in the human heart. But then, so does peace. Whether the heart remains open or hardens and shuts down has major implications for personal transformation, loving relationships, creative problem solving, all the way to world peace. As long as our goal is to justify our hard-heartedness and self-righteousness, joy and peace will always elude us. We'll continue to point fingers at wrongdoers while we ourselves are mirror images of them. And as always, the world will continue to reflect the character of its people. You know, the people we get so upset with eventually move away or go out of our lives. Everything changes with time. But the negative seeds we have planted are long-lived. So what I'm advocating here is something that requires courage. The courage to have a change of heart. Actually, this is where every courageous journey begins, doesn't it? Finding the soft spot that underlies the judgment and fear and anger. If we could breathe into that soft spot, it will take us directly to our tender heart. And from this place, miracles of understanding and reconciliation are possible. And we, little old you and me, will have then become peacemakers. We will have accessed the soul force within us. Desiring to be at peace with ourselves and peacemakers in our families, offices, community, and world, we make a vow to ourselves that to the best of our ability, knowing full well we're not perfect and we may backslide at times, we will not cause harm to ourselves or anyone else. Actually, this is our heartfelt wish for ourselves. The energy behind it has nothing to do with correcting something that we consider to be bad about ourselves. Rather, it comes out of an energy of loving kindness toward ourselves. It's like the Zen master Suzuki Roshi once said to his students, all of you are perfect as you are, and you could use a little improvement. The paradox? Maybe. But there you are. As we in unity know, divine order is always present and active, always bringing chaos into harmony. But this doesn't mean we need do nothing to change things. There's still work to do. Because we as individuals and as a community of souls have ancient habits that have been strengthening for a long time. And it's going to take some conscious action to unwind them. The great news is that our natural empathy and wisdom begin to come forward when we're not clouded by rigid views and our closed heart. when we've cultivated what Gandhi called passionate equanimity, another favorite phrase, passionate equanimity, caring and stability under pressure. And when we're in that place, common sense can win the day. And we know that if I retaliate toward the guy who insulted me, he might go home and hit his kid, and I don't want that to happen, so I don't bite. Pretty simple, really. Yes, there's still work to do. So what exactly is some of the work of becoming peace? The first is in making that vow, asking ourselves, am I dedicated to establishing peace in my heart and in my life? If the answer is yes, then I will meditate regularly. It's the best, possibly the only way to cultivate passionate equanimity. Will I take responsibility for doing whatever it takes to soften my heart when it goes rigid and I get stuck? Am I brave enough to be vulnerable, to find my tender spot and let it lead me? Jesus said, in your weakness is your strength. This is true spiritual warriorship, and it's the true practice of peace. Mother Teresa offers us the most powerful work of all. She had been invited to address the General Assembly of the United Nations as part of its 40th anniversary celebration. There was only one problem. In alignment with its policy of remaining free of religious prejudice, the United Nations has a rule that no prayer can be said there. Naturally, no mere rule was going to stop Mother Teresa. She marched her tiny body up to the podium, paused to pray, and then delivered the following love letter to the assembled world leaders. You and I have been called to come forward and share the joy of loving, but we cannot give what we do not have. That is why we need to pray. Prayer will give us a clean heart. And with a clean heart, we can see God in one another. And if we can see God in one another, we will be able to live in peace. Prayer to clean the heart. So simple and so profound. Prayer for ourselves and for others, even our so-called adversaries, even for our enemies. It's very difficult to stay angry, fearful, or judgmental toward a person when we're praying for him or her. I've tried it. Peacemakers are heart-centered global citizens. They understand that all people are children of God. They know that there can be no peace in their land until there is peace in their hearts. They hold fast to a vision of peace for people everywhere. They focus on all that is beautiful and brave and true. They've learned to listen patiently and speak with kindness. And best of all, they have found within themselves the courage to care. Just by being who they are, they bring peace and comfort and healing to others. The Buddha said, "Speak and act with a pure mind, and peace will follow you as your shadow, unshakable." Powerful words. So now, let's take a few minutes to intentionally practice peace. Some of you have heard of the beautiful Buddhist practice of Klein. I spoke about it a few weeks ago. This morning, we're going to open this practice through the power of the chant, which we'll be playing. And that chant is actually going to become our meditation. A chant is really a mantra planted in the consciousness through repetition. Now, as a reminder, Tonglen is based on the wisdom that in order to have compassion for others, we have to have compassion for ourselves. It is practiced by peacemakers as a way of proactively caring about other people who, like them, are often trapped in some form of anger, fear, addiction, or dis-ease. It generates healing compassion through the courage to face the pain of these things in ourselves. Practicing Tonglen, our whole attitude toward pain changes. Rather than running away from painful situations and the people or person whom we believe has caused it, we open our hearts and feel what we feel, knowing, as Pema Chodron teaches us, that it will soften and purify us. The practice is simple. Centered in the heart, we breathe into the pain within ourselves and send love to that. Then we breathe into the pain of others we know who are suffering and send love to them. And then as our heart expands even further, we breathe into the pain of human beings everywhere and send love to them. The promise is that doing so, we will overcome our fear of suffering and our sense of separation from other people. Instead, we stand in solidarity and compassion with people everywhere. So if you just take a nice deep breath, we'll begin.